Hi, guys, and welcome to the Way Too Indiecast, the official podcast of way2indie.com. Again, I am your host, Bernard, writer at Way Too Indie, coming to you from sunny Bay Area, California, around San Francisco. I don't really say I'm from San Francisco because I don't actually live there, but no one really knows the actual city I live in, so I just say Bay Area. Joining me today is a newcomer to the podcast, Susan Kemp, another writer at Way Too Indie. Hi, Susan.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing very well. It's really sunny up here. How are you doing down there in Southern California?
Yeah, it's sunny. You're here. I mean, it's going great. I just moved here from Denver a couple months ago, so I mean, I cannot complain at all. Ever. No, it's like Groundhog's Day. I wake up and I was like, "Wow, it's a nice day," and then the next day I wake up, I'm like, "Wow, it's a nice day." It just never stops.
And okay, so that's me and Susan here in sunny California, and joining us, our third person in our triumvirate today, coming from frigid Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, is a man known by many names. Here, I've got some names. Okay, you guys tell me whether you like these names or not. You give me a yay or nay. I've got a few. The Dastardly Dissenter.
I like the alliteration.
Alliteration, right?
Well, the alliteration's going to continue, kind of. The Prince of Pessimism.
That's not bad.
You like that one?
I like that one, yeah.
How about this? The Indie Arbiter.
It's a little too cocky.
What is that?
Okay, how about this one? This is my last one. The Master of Meh.
Oh, come on, no. It's such a no.
CJ Prince.
Guess who's back?
Guess who's back? Back in town. CJ Prince, my Canadian partner in crime.
Yes.
Glad to have you back on the podcast, man. Missed you last week.
Yes, if you listened to the podcast I was on last, you probably heard Bernard and I having a spat at the end. Of the last, you were calling me very nasty names.
I did, yeah. I was very nasty. We cut a few of them out.
Yeah.
But,
oh yeah, we had to that was funny.
But I thought I'd class it up here and give you some official nicknames. So, which one are we deciding on? Dastardly Dissenter, Prince of Pessimism, Indie Arbiter, Master of Meh.
I would say it's really down between the first two. I like I'm going to say the Dastardly Dissenter because I don't like having pessimism in the name. It's a little too like, it's just like basically that's just a classy version of Debbie Downer.
All right, well, we'll do Dastardly Dissenter and keep that rolling. Susan will come up with something for you down the line. But on this week's show, we've got a great show today. We're going to have a lot of fun as always. We're starting out with our first main segment, which is going to be about TV. Television we've been enjoying and watching lately. TV's kind of been in a renaissance for the past few years. I think there's a lot of great stuff out there, a lot to talk about. And then we're going to finish up with a great new horror movie that I just gave a must-see indie label on the website. Check out my review of It Follows on Way Too Indie. This movie's been generating a lot of momentum, a lot of buzz, a lot of talk. So we're going to continue the conversation and talk about it amongst ourselves. But to get things started, we are not going to play Name 5. Those of you who listen to the podcast.
I'm crying. I'm crying. I can't stop crying.
We're not playing fucking Name 5 anymore.
Oh, here we go. Bernard always gets so saucy.
Now we have to put an explicit tag on our podcast. Thanks.
Yeah. It's a sensitive subject for me, and it deserves the fuck. It deserves the fuck. It deserves the fuck. No more Name 5. Instead, what we're going to be doing is starting a new regular segment for every podcast. Every time you tune into the Way Too Indiecast, each of your hosts is going to give you an indie recommendation or a movie recommendation that we think you should watch, and perhaps movies that we think people might skip over but deserve more attention. So let's start this off with Susan. What's your indie pick, your indie recommendation this week?
Yeah, I picked a documentary called The Wrecking Crew, which I'm really into kind of artsy films regardless, but this one kind of goes back and looks at one of the backup bands that was here in LA. They did a lot of work with the Beach Boys, the Monkees, like to the point where the Beach Boys were like basically exclusively using them. And I think not a lot of people knew that a lot of these albums back then were sounding really, really, really good because basically one band was doing all the music and they just got really good at it. And I just kind of like anytime you take interesting personalities and kind of get to know a story behind a story that you sort of halfway know the story, but you didn't know the whole story. And these guys really deliver on that. And I think the real reason I'm recommending it is it was playing here, and anytime I'm like willing to drive to LA in rush hour traffic, like that's something that is probably worth saying. And it was worth it. It was good.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that movie. Was it Michael that reviewed it, CJ, or?
Yes, it was Michael, who I will not pronounce his last name.
But yeah, no, The Wrecking Crew by Denny Tedesco, documentary about the studio band The Wrecking Crew. I loved it. I loved it just like you, Susan. I thought it was fascinating. Really, really great especially if you're a big fan of music. Check that one out. CJ, what is your indie pick for this week?
My indie pick is a movie that also got Must See Indie on the site this week from Nicola, who is a friend of mine and a writer on the site. He saw it at Cannes. It's called Jauja, which is spelled Jauja. Stars Viggo Mortensen. It's directed by an Argentinian filmmaker named Lisandro Alonso. It's a film about, Viggo Mortensen plays a Danish explorer going to Argentina. He's with his teenage daughter. She runs off in the desert with a soldier, and he goes out to find her. And the film is basically his search for his daughter in the desert. It's a gorgeous movie. It's insanely gorgeous. It was shot on 35mm. It's done in the Academy ratio, but it actually has rounded corners, which is kind of this, people call it an Instagram movie because of that. But it's just, every frame is gorgeous. And I don't want to get into the plot because of what happens, but things change significantly. I tell people this. It reminds me of when I saw 2001, because it does things that really make you think like, okay, this is new. Like, someone's doing something very different. It's kind of like if there are filmmakers, who play within, like, the sandbox of cinema. This is like someone just jumping out of the sandbox and going somewhere else entirely and just seeing what'll happen. So it's a really striking film. I think I'm glad it's getting released in the States by Cinema Guild. So it just came out on March 20th, this last week, in limited release in theaters, and I think they'll be rolling it out slowly in the coming weeks.
You told me about this one a while ago, CJ. I'm really excited for this.
I hope it comes to your area. I really would like to hear your thoughts on it. So
I'll find it somehow. There were a lot of movies I had to review this week, or I had the pleasure of reviewing this week, this past week. But
nice
my favorite was probably It Follows, which we're going to be talking about later in the show. But another one that I actually really adore is called Seymour, An Introduction, which is a documentary about legendary concert pianist Seymour Bernstein, who at the age of, he was a great concert pianist. New York Times loved him. He got rave reviews everywhere, and he was respected by his colleagues. And then at the age of 50, he called it quits, said, "I'm not performing anymore," and he dedicated his life to teaching students and composing his own work. In my review, I kind of say that he's kind of like this sage-like figure who kind of scatters life-altering wisdom on the ground, and we're kind of like the pigeons at his feet. It's directed by Ethan Hawke, his first documentary. He's in the movie for a little bit. Mr. Bernstein is one of his mentors and actually helped him a lot with stage fright as an actor. I highly, highly recommend Seymour, An Introduction. It's playing in limited release right now, and it's really elegantly shot documentary that I think I'd recommend it to anybody.
That sounds right up my alley, actually. I'm like Googling this right now.
It's awesome.
Susan loves documentaries, and I'm glad that there is another person who enjoys watching documentaries on the site.
I'm with you guys. I love documentaries, and those are our indie picks for this week. Maybe we'll come up with a more clever name for the segment next week, guys.
Nope.
Well,
I think you used all your energy on giving me a nickname.
It's true. It's totally true. That is not. There's no exaggeration in that statement. We've got to move on from my failures, as I always do.
That's our motto. We got to move on from Bernard's failures.
Move on from Bernard's failures, and moving on into our first main topic of the day: television. I think the worlds of independent film and television are overlapping more than they ever have in history right now, and I think we're in a terrific point in TV's history. There's so much great stuff out there. Let's start with you, CJ. We've got a big feature coming up on the site where we talk about the best TV shows of the past 5 years, decades so far. What are some of your highlights? What do you want to talk about?
I pushed a lot of comedy because I think the comedies kind of get pushed down for dramas. The dramas usually are always put above, and so for comedy, I want to talk about the Eric Andre show, which I think is just one of the funniest shows on TV right now, at least for me. It's a talk show, but Eric Andre describes it as a talk show that takes place within like an alternate Lynchian universe, and every episode starts the exact same. Eric Andre runs into his set and destroys it. He literally leaps into the curtains and tears them down. He smashes his desk. He tackles his drummer in his band. He destroys everything. And then he sits back down, and then the set just rebuilds itself. And then the show goes. That's every episode. Starts that way. And what makes it even funnier is that every episode it's not repeating the same footage. He destroys it every single time a different way. It's like a literal statement of like, we're going to take the talk show format and destroy it and rebuild it to how we want it. But it's also just kind of the show itself, which is it takes the talk show format as this kind of structure. The show has its own very rigid structure like a talk show does, but it uses that format to play within it like it's this very weird, demented sandbox, and they do the craziest, insane things. It just seems all like comedy based on pure instinct, and they have these hidden camera pranks that are hilarious. And I say, writing about the show, that it's really, to me, the natural successor to the Tom Green Show and Jackass.
All right.
So that's kind of, I tell people, it's like take Tom Green Show, take Jackass, and merge it with David Lynch, and you kind of have an idea of what's going on with this show. It's on Adult Swim. It just finished its 3rd season. I think it's getting renewed for a 4th. I'm very excited no matter what. Either way, you should watch the show. Another show. Have any of you seen Transparent?
I haven't.
To go on the drama side, Transparent is, once again, it's kind of a sign that, years ago, cable was taking over network, right? You had HBO and Showtime making these shows that were taking over network, and now streaming seems to be taking away from cable, and that seems to be the case because Amazon makes Transparent, and in my eyes, I think that Transparent is actually better than any show that Netflix has made so far in my eyes. But that's just because it's a really, really strong show. It's completely new. Jeffrey Tambor plays a father of a family called the Pfeffermans. His name is Mort. At the first episode, he has to come out to his family that he is actually transgender. He is a woman, and so he changes his name to Mora, becomes Mora. And while she transitions, it follows Mora and her kind of issues with transitioning, along with the impact Mora has on her children, who are all kind of insanely selfish, very rude children, who aren't bad people. That's just their nature, I guess. And you can tell that they're people who are trying hard, but yet that's what I love about the show. It doesn't paint any characters in black and white. It's all very, very morally, I'd just say realistic. I don't want to say morally great. It's just realistic. They come across as these very real characters, and it's amazing that it does this within 10 half-hour episodes. When I watch shows that take seasons before they really get into the kind of groove that Transparent does within like the first 30 minutes.
Wow. Yeah, I've been wanting to check out Transparent. I love Jill Soloway. I think she's very talented.
Yeah, this is I know some people, I know her film work. I know, what was it called? Afternoon Delight didn't really
Afternoon Delight.
It had like some mixed reviews when it came out, and this one though has been a huge hit. Like if anyone is living under a rock, they don't know that, say, the show won at the Golden Globes for Best Series, and Jeffrey Tambor won for Best Actor. I remember I just put the show on as a fluke, and I was pulled in right away. I loved the pilot. Is one of the best pilots I've seen in years. I was blown away at how good the quality was, and I'm glad I watched it from the beginning, like once all the episodes came online, because Amazon put the pilot up months and months earlier. Because if no one knows, Amazon puts pilots of all these shows up online, and then people vote, and then the highest rated ones get picked up for full seasons. That's
great.
Which is great. And I was thinking, like, if I saw this back when the pilot went online, I would be going nuts waiting for this to actually come out, because it's that good. So, if you haven't seen Transparent, like, seriously, it's one of those, I think, necessary shows, and it's one of those few shows where, like, in the first season, it's already just, right up there with, like, the TV greats in my eyes.
Yeah, I really look forward to that one. Susan, what's caught your eye lately? What are you watching?
Yeah, I think this week I watched House of kind of late. I was really busy the week it came out, and I think I saw it either last week or the week before, and God, that could have its own podcast. Can we like not even talk about House of Cards?
Sure.
Okay, I haven't seen the show, so
No, because it's like angsty. I read a tweet by somebody who was kind of like okay. Well, first of all, let me preface by saying before I started watching it, I read some reviews like hesitantly, like you don't want to give away the whole series or anything, but I could tell the tone was somewhat negative. Then I saw this tweet by someone who's like a music reviewer, so I mean, I don't know. For people who are judging it, just remember that the first two seasons were kind of developing character and plot, and now we're actually at a place where they can tell a story. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but you know, that at least gives me some critical thinking, like maybe people are jumping to it. But I watched it all, and I'm not going to say I don't like it, but it really tore at me the whole time. Like I feel like I was in my head the whole season instead of just like being addicted and you know wanting to watch the next episode every single time that you watch, you know how the other seasons were. I kept thinking like, does this make sense? Like, do these motivations make sense? Would Claire do this? Would Frank do this? Like I kept like coming out of my head and like judging it on a meta level instead of like actually being invested in the show, because I feel like they make some choices that like I like it in theory. I like the idea of developing these characters so they're not archetypes and so that they, you know, because obviously everyone's human, but I just don't know if it's too much of a leap. Like I don't know if I buy how supportive Frank has been going this season, like how much he like lets Claire talk. Like I don't know, and some people seem to disagree with me, but like I just, you know, I feel like if you have to question it the whole season, it's hard to just enjoy it.
I haven't seen the show.
Yeah, I haven't seen either, but I'll go back to that comment you said about the guy who says they spent 2 seasons developing character and stuff. If that was true, that's bad. I would say that's a bad TV show where you have to spend 26 episodes developing it before you can actually start doing a story. That doesn't sound like a good TV show to me. It's like you should, you know, get a good sense of...
I wouldn't say that. I don't know. I wouldn't say... Like, for example, like... If you take a show like a sitcom like The Office, I mean, there's almost zero plot in the whole series. It's all character development.
Well, I mean, what the person was saying, oh, that's a different example, because I mean, The Office is doing a different thing. It kind of brings you back to this debate people say where, you know, they say, oh, give a show like this many episodes before, you know, how much of an investment do you have to make in a TV show, you know, before, because people will say like, oh, it gets good by episode 6, and it's like, well, I'm not going to watch 5 hours of something on the off chance that I'll like it on hour 6. You know, like, it reminds you of... an example that I feel like is an Exception to that would be Parks and Recreation, because the first 6 episodes were really shaky, and then after the first season, the first episode of season 2, it became, you know, this... just one of my personal favorite shows of all time, so... but yeah, I always find that straight. So when I hear things like that, like someone says, oh, they did all this time developing, and now they're actually making a story, it's like... Yeah,
but whenever people say things like that, I always feel like it's kind of... like a silly thing to say, because most of the time I like with TV shows I've seen where people say things like that, where it's like, you know, like it takes a couple, you know, like a season and a half to get going. Nothing really happens in the first, you know, season and a half. They're usually like, it's usually bullshit what they're saying. It's like, no, you know what I mean? Like, you're just exaggerating to be.
Yeah, it just sounds like a person is like, they wasted all their time and they're like trying to like salvage it by being like, oh, it gets really good like at this point, or like.
Well, it's like the people who say that Whiplash is just J.K. Simmons yelling at Miles Teller the whole time. Well, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a silly reductive.
Yeah,
I don't even get what they're saying, because I think everyone would say that House of Cards season 1 and 2 have more action in season 3. Like, it's like so backwards. Yeah. But like, I mean, in season 3 he basically got what he wanted, so like it's kind of developing the storyline that was always meant to be or something. Like, I sort of get what he's saying, but like in practice it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And what really drives me crazy is like a lot of what was good about the show was, you know, Kevin Spacey and his like he would say these things that are so awful, you know, to the camera. He had these like breaking the fourth wall kind of monologues, and you know, they were just like, holy shit, like, you know, but they're like honest, so you're like, that makes it even more like a holy shit moment. And like this season, they just seem so tame, or they seem expected, and they're just not that interesting. And you kind of like lose some of the, you know, respect of him as a cunning individual, because there's just not a lot of cunning to this season. Like I feel like the first two seasons had all this like master plan that was unfolding and whatever, and this season doesn't have that at all. I guess it's supposed to be like a foil of, you know, he can't always win. Like I get what they were doing, right? They were trying to make him human. They were trying to make him not perfect. They were trying not to, like, you know, like if Superman always wins, that's kind of boring. It just didn't connect with me. Like I think there was something lacking for sure. I guess I've beat it up enough, right?
Yeah. No, you know, even though, you know, I definitely trust your opinion, I think I'm still going to check it out.
Oh, you definitely should check it out.
At least the first two seasons.
I'll see House of Cards someday. I remember I watched the first, like 5 minutes of the first episode, and it was like, I always hate when pilots do this thing where it's like they have this very transparent scene where it's like, I don't know how to describe it, so I'll just say like the opening of the first episode of House of Cards is Kevin Spacey killing a dog that got hit by a car on the street, and it's just one of those, like, I hate when pilots do that because it's such a transparent, like, look at this character, like, you got to get pulled in, look what he did, like, that always drives me nuts on TV shows, that kind of like establishing. It's kind of a necessary evil with pilots, so I'm not like, it's not a deal breaker, but you know, like that. I remember I watched this and I was like, oh, I'll check it out later.
I can't believe you guys haven't seen it.
I know.
I intend to check it out someday. Like I had a similar thing with Mad Men, and then I finally watched it and I was like, oh, okay, like it's good. But, you know, so it happens, but I don't know. What about I'm taking over your hosting duties for 5 seconds. Bernard, what TV shows can you talk about?
Well, CJ, I gotta be honest with you guys. I watch so many movies. I'm not really an avid television watcher, or at least not as much as I used to be. I used to be much more into it before I started working here at Way Too Indie. But you know, I will say that I mostly watch kind of quasi sports, I guess. Well, I watch UFC, like MMA. On the regular. I guess that's just a real sport. But I also, and this, I'm not going to make this quick, but I also watch professional wrestling, or fake wrestling. I watched it since I was a baby, pretty much. And I got to say, this coming Sunday's Wrestle fucking Mania, and I'm going.
You're going
to
WrestleMania.
It's in the Bay Area. It's in Santa Clara at the 49ers' new, brand spanking new Levi Stadium, and I'm going to be there. And I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind because this is all my dreams coming true.
Is The Rock gonna be there?
You know what? He wasn't supposed to be last year's, and he was. He just showed up.
Paint your face or something? Is that what you guys do?
No, I'm gonna wear a T-shirt. I'm really excited though because I got like 8 tickets for me and my friends and family, and we're gonna get there like 5 hours early to the stadium and just tailgate and get drunk for 5 hours.
I did not know that was a thing.
It's amazing.
You could make signs. You gotta make signs.
It's hard. I never make signs when I go to wrestling stuff because I feel it's inconsiderate of the people sitting behind you. Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I understand, but you know, I mean, I think I guess there are a lot of inconsiderate. I never thought of it that way, so I'm like, wow, there are a lot of like assholes at wrestling events now, considering all the signs.
You're totally removing your chance to be on the big screen, though, man.
I know. Yeah, well, there's gonna be 70,000 people there. There's no way I'm gonna be.
I always wanted to go with a sign where I would write down Austin 317 and then just put an X through the 7 and a 6 below it. On the side. I'd always, ever since because I don't watch wrestling anymore, but I watched it when I was very young, so like I was like part of that generation. Well, I guess they're still there, but you know, like Undertaker, Kane, Stone Cold, Mankind, well, Mick Foley generally, who I adore, Mick Foley, and Triple H, Shawn Michaels, etc., and I guess a lot of them are still around in some capacity.
Yeah, like Triple H is wrestling this at WrestleMania. He's wrestling Sting.
Must all be like
I don't know if you remember Sting.
Or they're in really bad movies. But no, Sting. I went to one of these things once, not because I wanted to, but because my dad thought it was like a bonding thing or something. I remember Sting was there. That's like the only thing I remember about wrestling is like the Nature Boy. Oh no, that's Rick. Oh
yeah,
shit.
Ric Flair is Nature Boy, yeah.
But anyway,
Sting was WCW.
No, we gotta stop.
We gotta stop.
Yeah, we gotta stop. I can't make this into a wrestling conversation. I feel so guilty. But I do watch professional wrestling. But I watch some TV still. I'm not as active as most people, but
You're gonna be like MASH. I watch MASH.
Yeah, I just got into this new show called Columbo about this really gritty detective.
Rest in peace, Peter Falk.
Can I go one tangent? Like, I saw in the New York Times last year or something that the guy who plays Columbo died, and I told my mom, and she like would not believe it. Like, she just loves Columbo so much that she could not accept it. And as far as I know, she's still in denial. So
he's the best, man.
Peter Falk was the best.
Oh my god.
That's one of that. Him and Gina Rollins, like, just one of the best ever.
They're the best, and I love that movie. But okay, I gotta bring it back here.
TV shows. Talk to us some TV shows.
Black Mirror. I'm watching Black Mirror. It's excellent.
How far in are you?
Okay, so I've jumped around a bit because it's an anthology show.
Yeah, true. Okay.
I've jumped around, but I watched. I've done four out of 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But it's like this kind of satirical anthology show on BBC, British television. It's by Charlie Brooker, who is the showrunner, and it's really a phenomenal show about the darker side of technology and our anxieties as a society about what the consequences of our technological leaps will be. And I talked last episode or the episode before about Ex Machina, which is a forthcoming indie by Alex Garland, which is coming out this coming month, April. That movie has more of an optimistic view of AI and technology and how it's a good thing. A really fascinating way of explaining that. But Black Mirror is the total opposite. It's all about the terror of technology and what it could potentially do to our lives, or what it's doing now. Those are maybe the more terrifying aspects of it. Have you guys seen the show?
Yes, I've seen all the episodes. I really like the show. I think it's as close. It's really the only thing that is doing like Twilight Zone-esque type of stuff now, and I'm really happy that that's surviving in some way, because I adore those.
Wild Tales, man. Wild Tales.
Wild Tales. That's a movie, and
it's
this is more.
Bro.
I'm not talking about anthology. I'm talking about these kinds of like horror story things. And I don't know. Did you see the episode? It was called White Bear, about the girl who wakes up and everyone is kind of hunting her down.
No.
Okay. Well, I can't. That's like. Apparently a controversial pick is my favorite episode. I think it's absolutely like a horrifying episode. I remember once they kind of reveal everything, it just this like sinking feeling pit in my stomach. The end credit sequence is astounding for how much they pack it and how absolutely horrifying and vital it is, and they pack it into like a 60-second end credit sequence. I really like the show. I think that Charlie Brooker has a huge knack for coming up with these kind of really brilliant kind of high concept hooks that involve technology. If anyone has seen it, like the first episode alone, which
God.
The prime minister is basically told that one of the members of the royal family has been kidnapped for ransom, and she'll be set free unharmed if the prime minister has sex with a pig on live television. That's the setup. And that's the first episode. Like,
it's so
what show? And you sit there and you're like, this is stupid. Like, what a weird, stupid concept. And you watch it, and it plays out so dead serious. And then there's no like winking, no self-awareness, and it's so serious. And yet
that episode
brilliant.
in particular is just so wicked. And so darkly funny. But I think my favorite one that I've seen so far is Be Right Back, which is the first one of the second series or second season, and
also stars from Ex Machina Domhnall Gleeson, right?
Domhnall Gleeson stars as Ash, who lives with his girlfriend, I think, Martha, played by Haley Atwell, and he dies. But I won't spoil how, but he dies at some point during the story, and Martha actually comes across this certain type of technology that can, in a way, bring him back from the dead in a synthetic form, and kind of use his search engine entries to rebuild his personality and imbue this synthetic creature with him, basically. Everything he left in this world digitally. And it's a really fascinating and creepy episode that I love, because I love Domhnall Gleeson, and Haley Atwell is just gorgeous. I love Haley Atwell, and they both do a great job.
Yeah, I mean that's an example. That's what I think about when I think about it. That's just like the concept of the episode, that they're able to take all of his Facebook posts, his Twitter posts, his everything he's ever written online, his emails, and come up with an approximation of him and use it as a bot. Like, that's such a creepy, realistic kind of concept. Like, you actually think you're like, that could someone could do that. Like, that could actually be done.
Yeah.
And it's very, very eerie. So that's kind of what I love about the show. He really knows how to. Charlie Brooker isn't the only person who writes on the show, but like him and the other writers, they come up with a lot of great stuff. And the Christmas special that just aired in the UK with John Hamm was also quite good as well.
Yeah, you got to check it out, Susan.
It's on Netflix. The series, I believe.
Well,
it's
I need
Netflix.
Something to watch, though. That makes sense, because I just finished the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I put it out there. I'm like, let's segue into Kimmy Schmidt. I'm like, please take it. So I put it out there. I mentioned John Hamm. Spoilers.
I gotcha.
we should have mentioned John Hamm. That's kind of spoilers for the series, but
Unbreakable.
I think we've all. Bernard, did you finish the series?
No, I'm not done.
Okay, what episode are you on?
I don't know. They're so short. I don't know. I'd say I'm halfway through.
Okay, so because we know, obviously, Susan and I, we can't reveal too much.
Okay.
Yeah, they all die. They all die at the end. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Kimmy Schmidt is it's gone under some controversy lately for reasons I think are really stupid, but I'm not going to say they're not valid. But
yeah, well, let's tell them about the premise. So it's Ellie Kemper stars as a mole woman, one of 4 mole women who live in an underground bunker for like how long? Like 20 years.
15
or 15 years. Sorry, and they come back to reality. They are discovered and come back to the real world 15 years later after they left it and went underground. And Ellie Kemper kind of moves to New York and tries to navigate New York City as someone who last stepped foot on the Earth's surface in the 90s. So it's such a brilliant premise. I think it's hilarious, just the premise alone.
It's dark. Like that's why it's funny, because it's really like, how the hell are you like, I told people about the show. I try and get people to watch it. I tell them the premise, and they're like, that sounds horrible. And I'm like, no, it's really funny.
I told my mom that too, and I was like, yeah, so they're in a cult and then they get rescued, but it's really funny. And my mom's Mexican, by the way, and I was like, oh, and there's this one Mexican lady, she pretends she doesn't know anybody or can't hear anything, and my mom's like, oh, okay, that sounds funny. And I'm like, it is, I promise.
Yeah, it's that's why I like the show. I mean, it walks a tightrope. I think it does it really well for the most part, between this kind of really cartoony, silly tone that is very similar to 30 Rock. If you don't know, Tina Fey and Robert Carlock, who did 30 Rock, also created this one. And it also goes into these really, really dark areas. But yeah, I think it's a really great balance. And I think what really helps the balance out is that you have Ellie Kemper, who I think completely nails the role of Kimmy Schmidt.
She can pretty much do anything, I think. She's a really versatile actress.
I don't know why I did this, but I looked her up after the first episode because I was like, I love this girl. And I saw that she had applied for Saturday Night Live and didn't get it. And I was like, who wouldn't hire this girl? Like, I think she's great. Like, just the comedic timing is everything. I mean, it's absolutely everything on this show.
There was that great segment on the SNL 40th anniversary where they showed audition tapes of big stars now who didn't get in when they auditioned for SNL. And it was really funny. Like, Zach Galifianakis didn't get in.
What?
Jim Carrey
didn't get in.
So subjective, comedy. And
I don't know. I feel like if someone's got it, they'll find a way no matter what. Like, I don't know. I mean, it won't be like Jim Carrey. He didn't get into SNL, but he wound up going on In Living Color.
He did okay. Jim Carrey did okay with his
yeah, okay. That's an understatement.
Jenny Slate was on for one season, and now she's doing awesome.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I was really happy because I love Jenny Slate, and I think she's hilarious. And yeah, she basically dropped the F-bomb on SNL. I don't know why I'm saying the F-bomb. We already cursed earlier, but yeah, so she just cursed on air, and she just stuck around for the rest of the season, and they booted her. But then she went off, and now she's doing an amazing job on Kroll Show. She got her serious role with Obvious Child, and she's doing great. So I'm really happy. Oh my gosh, I forget the title. There's a TV show she did online for Jash. It's on YouTube. I forget the name now, but it's a really weird TV series that it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. And she stars in it. It's the name of this woman. I think it's Karen or something. But anyway, recommend. I'm going to recommend that vague description I just gave. So go out and go type into Google Jenny Slate YouTube chat show.
Zach, our editor, he's definitely not going to cut that part out.
No, don't cut that out, Zach. Keep it in because the listeners really want to hear it.
But let's get back to Kimmy Schmidt. I think I'm really enjoying it. I think I'd say it's a notch less funny than 30 Rock. I'd say you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd agree.
I'm not laughing hysterically like I used to with 30 Rock with this, but it's a different thing, so I won't hold that against it.
Yeah,
it's charming somehow.
It has more. I mean, this one is like you have Kimmy Schmidt at the center, so she's very morally righteous to a point, whereas 30 Rock was just a bunch of crazy, vain people, and Liz Lemon was kind of the least crazy, least vain to a point. I'm finding it interesting how it's kind of merging that, because it has the really crazy cartoonish stuff, and Kimmy's surrounded by these kind of ultra vain characters. And I want to mention, I think I'm just happy to see Jane Krakowski doing like the same. It's essentially the exact same role as on 30 Rock, but I'm not complaining. I love Jenna Maroney. I love Jacqueline Voorhees. They're similar in a lot of ways, but yeah, I think Jane Krakowski's amazing. Someone said it best. It's like she's like Tina Fey's muse in a lot of ways, and I would agree with that. I think that when they get together, they're unstoppable.
Unbreakable.
Yeah, they're unbreakable. It's a really catchy theme. It's such a silly theme.
Yeah, I want to
really
steal it and put it on my iTunes. It's horrible.
One of my favorite things Kimmy does is, I just love all of her antiquated pop culture references.
Yeah. No, and I get them all because she's 29, right? Like I am too. I try not to tell people this because it's horrible, but it's great to remember all these things from the 90s that were like.
Well, she has a JanSport backpack.
Yes.
JanSport, and she says, and I love how she doesn't understand modern pop culture. Like she'll say hash brown instead of hashtag.
And also Titus Burgess and Carol Kane. We should mention those because those two I love. Titus Burgess is so good on that show.
I love Kimmy Schmidt, and there's a lot of more great stuff on television. I think we're probably going to talk more about TV on future episodes because I think we're going to be covering TV more on the site as well. So keep a lookout for that on Way Too Indie. But for now, we're going to have to end the conversation there and take a little break. And on the other side of the break, we're going to be talking about one of the best movies I've seen this year, It Follows, which I gave must-see indie, the must-see indie label on our site. I think it's really excellent. We'll talk about that when we come back. You're listening to the Way Too Indiecast, the official podcast of WayTooIndie.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at WayTooIndie. Hey guys, we're back on the Way Too Indiecast. We just got done talking about television and what TV shows we've been watching lately. But now I want to talk about a film that I watched just recently and that I think is one of the best of the year so far. I really enjoyed it. It follows the teen horror opus by David Robert Mitchell starring Micah Monroe. God, it really knocked me out. This is one of the scariest movies I've seen in years. But CJ, the release of this movie represents more than just a good movie coming out. There's been a little bit of a weird kind of rolling out of this movie as far as distribution is concerned.
Yes, so this is something that I think is pretty surprising. It's pretty big. I think it's kind of unprecedented, especially since VOD has become a really favored form of distribution for indies. It Follows, I think, was snapped up by Radius, which is owned by the Weinstein Company, back after it premiered at Cannes last May. If you've been following this film, it feels like ages since it came out or premiered, I guess. So the plan was, Radius is a VOD-based kind of distribution area of the Weinstein Company, so they were going to do a VOD release simultaneous with theatrical. Then they decided that because there was a lot of hype, critics were going nuts about the movie, so they decided that they were going to give it kind of a 2 or 3 week window in theaters, and then I think it was on the 13th of March it came out, and then they were going to release on VOD on the 27th. It came out in 4 theaters in LA and New York. It did insanely well. I think it's the highest or the second highest opening for a limited release this year. it made like 160 something thousand in 4 theaters in one weekend, which is an insane amount. That's like a 40,000 per screen average. And then the Radius kind of went, we got something here. They realize, I think that we're underestimating how much demand is for this movie. So after that, and it just did amazing work again. It got on its second weekend, expanded to about 30 theaters, did amazing work. So the Weinstein Company, Radius, said, we're not going to do a VOD anymore. We're going to hold off the VOD, and we're going to give it a wide release in over 1,000 theaters on the week of March 27th. So it's kind of a huge thing, I think, because can anyone remember the last time like an indie movie had that much theatrical viability that it kind of just, they said, nope, we're going to give it a full wide release? I don't think that's happened. It's kind of, it's interesting because it's a brand new thing. It shows that, I think it's a reminder that VOD is just this really kind of very new area of indie film and film distribution. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Because I don't know, Bernard, you're so eager on it. Should we give the listeners I feel like we've talked about this on every podcast in the last few weeks because we're really hyped about it on the site. I think everyone's hyped about it who's seen it.
Yeah. It's really, I can't recommend it enough. By David Robert Mitchell. It's a horror movie about this monster that it's such a simple idea. This creation, this horror creation, is such a simple idea that it really like blows my mind that no one else has come up with it before. But it's essentially a shapeshifter that can take the form of anybody and follows people. It just walks towards people until it kills its target, or their target has sex with someone else, thereby passing on the curse to a new target. So it's this monster that's just constantly walking. It doesn't run. It doesn't speak. It doesn't do anything else. It just follows. It's prey. And Micah Monroe stars in the movie as this kind of hot chick from a Detroit suburb. I think it's Detroit. Is it Detroit?
Yeah, it's Detroit.
It's Detroit. Okay, so it's like a Detroit suburb, and Micah Monroe plays this girl who has sex with one of her new boy toys, and her new boy toy happens to be one of the targets of this kind of paranormal stalker. So she's the new target, and her, along with her group of close friends, try to figure out a way for her to be rid of the monster, whether that be by finding a way to kill it or just have sex with someone else and pass it along. I love the simplicity of the premise. I love the way it's shot. The acting's great. The direction is really intense. I think David Robert Mitchell sustains a level of tension throughout the entire film that I've never felt before. I don't think there wasn't a lull in me being scared the whole time. Probably.
Yeah, I think it's a horror movie that I have to watch it again. I saw it in last fall at the Toronto Film Fest. So I've been itching to see it again, so I'm waiting for it to come out wide. Yeah, it's a horror movie that knows how to do a horror movie, right? I feel that's as a fan of horror movies, it's so frustrating. A horror movie that knows
how to be good.
Yes, because there's so many horror movies that just do it wrong, and this one knows how to be good because it's this kind of all-encompassing thing, and that's the hook of it. Like, you can't escape it. Like, you can outrun it, but for a time, it's still coming for you no matter what. It never stops. It's just
you got a bone, man. You got a bone.
You gotta, that's the only way. But that's the catch, because even if you spread it on, if the thing kills whoever you spread it on to, it just comes back to you.
It goes back down the line.
Yeah, it just keeps going back
targets. Yeah.
So it's like there really is no escaping. You just it's like a lot of great horror films. It's a very obvious metaphor for death, or in this case more of kind of coming of age or going from adolescence into adulthood, and kind of realizing everything wrong with the world in a way, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's about kind of sex as a rite of passage into
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there's been a lot of criticism towards the film because they think the sexual politics of it are really bad.
Right.
It's not like that's one of my hang-ups with the movie and why I want to see it again, because I think that that aspect is really muddled. I think it is intended to be like sex is kind of the rite of passage between adolescence and adulthood. And that kind of independence and the kind of anxiety and fear associated with kind of going into the real world and getting out from that shelter you have being underage. But
if it was like the 80s or 90s, I think it would be a clear metaphor for AIDS. Like if this if this were the
Yeah.
80s or 90s, it's clearly AIDS, but it's not. So,
No, I mean, yeah, it's more on a bigger scale, but that's the thing. Like, I feel like in a way it's left open to interpretation in a lot of ways. So some people have been taking it like just in these really bad ways, which I don't blame them. I think the movie leaves itself open enough that it's understandable that people would take it that way. But I guess I want to bring back to Snowpiercer, because last year Radius and the Weinstein Company were going to release Snowpiercer in theaters, big wide release because it was a big cast. There was the whole debate and story, you know, Harvey Weinstein wanted to cut the film down and add narration and stuff and make it accessible to Midwestern viewers in the States. People got furious. They said, no, keep the director's original vision. And then they decided, okay, we'll keep the original cut, but we're going to put it out on VOD. And then the thing was a huge hit on VOD. It made millions and millions. And they kind of realized, like, we could have had a really big hit on our hands, and we kind of didn't do it. I feel like by doing this with It Follows, by, you know, changing course and giving a wide release, I feel like they're trying to correct what they did wrong last year with Snowpiercer.
Yeah, they wisened up, it seems like.
Yeah, it seems like they realize that, okay, you know, and that's the thing about VOD that I find interesting, because you can't put it on VOD and in theaters simultaneously, because a lot of theaters will not play a film if it's available on VOD. It makes business sense, you know, like, why are people going to come out and see a movie in theaters when they can just click a button at home and watch it? So that's why they're pulling it from VOD. They're giving it the wide release. I don't know, how do you guys feel about VOD in general, and do you feel like sometimes there are cases where you feel like a film could have done amazing numbers, just been a huge success, but it didn't because it was given a VOD release?
I just feel like with VOD, like the problem is, like, the geeks like us who are watching every single movie as it comes out and are kind of looking forward to it. Like, I feel like VOD might actually work fine for us, right? But, like, still most of the country, you know, they go to the theater and they kind of encounter, you know, movies. And so it's kind of limiting if you do that. And I don't know.
No, I was going to say that I think an example to me, another horror movie, but I think The Babadook was a film that had a lot of hype behind it.
Yeah.
And I feel like if IFC gave that a release a bit wider, then, you know,
well. Yeah.
it would have done really well. I think that's what I think is happening, that with VOD, it's kind of, in some cases, I feel like films are being deprived of getting more success because they don't realize the demand for films.
Yeah, and they're skipping a step, right? Because they can, you know, they can go to the theater and then go to VOD after, right? Like you can have both, and I think they're just skipping theater because they don't think they'll make money there. And I honestly think they're doing that because they're out of touch with their audience. Mm-hmm. You know, if you feel this, you could feel the groundswell for these movies like Babadook and Snowpiercer, and it follows, like, anyone who casually even follows independent film, you know, and the festival circuit, you know that these films are generating interest, and if I just think they didn't latch onto that, or they didn't want to take the risk.
Maybe that needs to be monitored better. One thing I'm, like, kind of itching to say is, you were like, can you think of another one this has been done with recently? And I actually can, but I wanted to double check if I was right. In last summer, October? Okay, that's not summer. I saw a film in Denver when I was still there called Meet the Patels. It's this documentary. It's really good, like, really fucking, like, I could not, like, scream how good this was enough in my review. But basically it's this Indian American guy named Ravi, and his parent, and he's 30, and his parents want to set him up, and so that gets kind of awkward because he has a girl he likes, but, you know, she's this nice white girl because he's American, and they set it up in a way that it's kind of narrative nonfiction. Like, okay, all documentaries are, but it's, like, even more so. Like, they really play this, like, as a story with, like, dramatic, like, tension and character development, and, like, it's kind of like, I don't know what to explain it to, but you know how, like, This American Life or Serial, or, like, the audio ones that try to, like, really tell this as a story, not just as a, like, so this was my life, and it, you know, and it was really good, and they have, like, comics interwoven, and it's beautiful how they do it. Like, they have some of the scenes acted out because they can't, like, really go back and do some of this stuff because they didn't really know, I think, that they were going to do certain scenes, or they were really personal. And these comics, they really lighten the mood. Like, this is a hilarious movie about a kind of dramatic subject. I mean, this guy's parents really were trying to set him up, right? And it was hilarious. Like, the theater was just, like, dying of laughter. And it was doing well on all the, like, film circuits, and it actually got picked up. Like, it's going to come to theaters this year via Alchemy.
Oh, great.
And it deserves it. And like, they knew it deserved it. And what kind of made me want to go on this tangent is what you guys were saying about just paying attention to your audiences. Because I mean, these things were like selling out and people just couldn't talk about it enough. And it's like, if you get that feedback, like, it's one thing to pat yourself on the back, but it's another thing to be like, hey, this might be a crossover. Like, this might actually do well in theaters. So I'm thrilled for them. Like this movie is great. Like, it's hilarious and it's touching, and it's both like sociologically aware and hilarious. You know, it's just.
Right. I guess you'll want to review it when it comes out.
Oh, apparently.
I was gonna say, you seem really eager. Actually, that one premiered at the Hot Dogs Festival last year. It was an award winner too. I think it won. Not sure if it won the audience award or the jury award, but it's a film. I didn't I didn't hear of it since, so I'm a little surprised. That's good that it got distribution, got picked up. So yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I feel like it's difficult to have a barometer for this. You know, this kind of it's a word of mouth thing more of. You know, with the films we're mentioning. You know, it's more of just kind of a hype and a build up, and you know, it's hard to really measure that unless you're like, you know, going on Twitter and stuff or Facebook and you're trying to, you know, count or find mentions or something. It's difficult, but I feel like sometimes it's right in front of you. Like, you know, Bernard, you said that even if you were casual, you would have seen that people were really, really buzzed about Snowpiercer.
Right.
You know, so sometimes, and I feel like it was the same with It Follows. Like, maybe it's just me biased because I was dying to see that movie for
It Follows
a long
had
time.
more hype than Snowpiercer did.
Yeah, it's a hook. Like, honestly, I think the appeal of the movie, in a large way, at least for me, was it's basically like an adult version of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
I put that in my review, dude. Like, it made me. You know why it feels like that? I thought, and I said in my review, is that the adults are pretty much non-entities.
Campfire opening.
The campfire, yeah.
That's like the
and
opening
the Canadian accents.
The Nickelodeon title screen at the beginning. Nickelodeon produced it.
Yeah. But no, it's you know, their parents are just kind of non-entities in the movie. It's all about these kids. Yeah. And it takes place in the suburbs, and there's like wood paneling in interiors, and it's ambiguous as far as its time period. It has, you see wood panel interiors and boob tubes, but you also see smartphones as well, and like
sick ass clamshell phone.
Yeah, that clamshell like e-reader the one girl has. It's so cool, but it gives it like an urban legend type of feel. You know, like it kind of feeds into that '90s thing where we were all obsessed with like. Bloody Mary and shit, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think I it was something I didn't realize, but yeah, I agree with you. The movie, it feels very deliberate in the way that it has this kind of timeless quality because it's combining so many aspects of the last several decades together. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's probably why it gives off that feeling. Not only that, I think just the simplicity of it and the fact that, you know, it has an opening scene that feels, the opening scene alone could have went directly into an episode of like an HBO version of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
How are they not bringing that goddamn
We're like
show
bringing up Kimmy Schmidt, like next references. We should like email Tina Fey and be like, "Are you afraid of the dark?"
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Well, look, I assume that everyone grew up with that show. Unless you were born in '99 or something, but that was one of my favorites growing up. I'm sorry, I would watch that.
Still scary.
That and Goosebumps even, but Goosebumps was shittier. But it wasn't as scary.
But remember the dog at the beginning of the
oh
theme
god,
song?
and then the theme song would do the barking. Oh god.
That was a horrible show. I can't believe you guys remember that. Like, I had like partitioned it off into another side of my brain.
Oh, I'm sorry. We brought up repressed memories of childhood horror anthology shows. I don't know. I wonder. I feel like this is it's a reminder to me, this release strategy of how VOD is still very new and fresh, and it's still something that needs to be figured out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're really in a really kind of confusing transitional phase as far as digital distribution is concerned and how we consume media. There's so many different avenues, and none of them's really dominating any other. Although we can kind of latch onto trends and try to see where things are going, but it's hard to forecast. You know, where we're going to be in even 2 years and how we're going to be consuming our movies and TV shows and media. But you know, for now, we just got to enjoy it as kind of like this Wild West landscape of digital distribution for movies and TV. I'm having fun. As long as I can watch my movies, man, I'm happy.
Yeah, I don't want a damn VOD because I mean, it's like you used to not be able to watch these films. Like sometimes I think about Dustin and he's in like South Dakota or something. Like that has to suck. I mean, right?
Oh, I can't wait for that. She's talking about our editor in chief and founder, Dustin Jancic. And hello, Dustin, if you're listening.
Congrats on getting married, buddy.
Yeah, he got married. Congrats on getting married. I don't think South Dakota sucks.
No, I mean not the state of South Dakota, but I think like here
it just must suck to live there, you know?
No, I mean I live an hour from LA, so I can see stuff if I want to, but it's hard, but I can do it. And I just feel like certain parts of the region, like VOD is making all these movies that used to not be available. And I mean, I used to feel kind of weird even reviewing them, knowing that like most of the people on the internet would never be able to find it, even if they liked my review. And at least now they can do that. Right. So sorry that I had to insult Dustin in our like my attempts against.
No, you're not insulting Dustin. You're insulting South Dakota. I like what Bernard does, where it's like you try and apologize, but it just comes across as even worse. It's like, no, I'm not saying it's a bad place to live. I'm just saying it sucks to live there.
But guy, we got to wrap it up with that bash on South Dakota. We love South Dakota, even though. We've never been there, but we're sure it's a great place. Oh, you have been there. You have been there. So, okay. So Susan's been there. What did you think?
I remember camping in some sort of like place where you like bring your own tent. But that's pretty much the extent of what I remember of South Dakota.
Sounds lovely. BYOT. Thank you guys for joining us on today's episode of the Way Too Indiecast. It's a weekly show now, so we'll see you guys next week for a brand new episode. But to close out, let's tell us where we can find you on social media, guys. Susan, where can we find you on Twitter?
On Twitter, I'm Susan_Kemp.
CJ, where can we find you on Twitter?
Oh, yes. If you can find me or not find me, your choice, on Twitter at CJ_Prin. That's at CJ_PRIN.
And I'm BJ_Boo on Twitter. As far as Way Too Indie goes, follow us on Twitter at Way Too Indie. Like us on Facebook. You can even find us on Instagram or Spotify. And for the IndieCast, find us on iTunes. Give us a comment on there and a rating. We'd very much appreciate it. And you can subscribe to us on there too. We'd love that. And you can also find us on Stitcher Radio. That'll do it for us this week. Thank you guys for sticking around and listening. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bum. I don't know. I just taped a thing with a friend yesterday, and I did the exact same thing every time I went to a break, and I don't know why I'm obsessed. It's like a forced thing now. I don't know why I do it. Yeah.
I'm glad you did that, because I felt like I had to hold my breath.
No.